Tonight we take a journey into the Hollow Woods, a narrative story game where players have interconnecting art cards which they're going to use to tell a story. I've invited 3 very different storytellers into the studio to have a go.
Once upon a time, through a cracked mirror, there lived an elf who was not an elf that you would imagine, who was tall and beautiful and held all of the power of the woods, but existed in striped pajamas, bottoms only, and had sharp teeth and would take himself in a mirror and imagine what could be on the other side. And all of the dreams that he had were but thwarted when they became images of mist in the trees and revealed nothing of another world, but shadows cast by his body. And lo, he dreamt of finding treasure hidden within the woods. And everywhere he went, he looked within the weeds and the moss, only to turn around and find his shadow following him, dissipating, following, dissipating. When over his shoulder one night, all he heard was, "Beware the wolf." And in his heart, he wondered what this could mean. And he raced back to his mirror, followed by his shadow, looking for treasure. Beware the wolf, beware the wolf. And he looked in the mirror, and all he could see was his cracked face. But somewhere behind even the shadows that followed him, right in the background, there was a character with sharpened teeth, big, proud ears, and where his bald head once was, fur. And the way that he knew this was by the striped pajamas matched between the wolf and himself. And when he looked back in the reflection, there before him stood a wolf. And as he looked into this mirror and into this face of this strange wolf, memories started populating through his head of a house far, far away, a young girl in a red hood running with a basket, screaming for her grandmama. And he thought about it further and further. And then he looked and considered his face in the mirror. My, what big teeth you have. But as he considered even further, he thought and plucked somewhere there, and an image of a red girl running away and then running into his mouth. My, what big teeth you have. Beware the wolf. And with this scare, he retreated from the mirror, tried to come back to finding his treasure, tried to retreat into that shadow, but everywhere the wolf followed. And so too this memory of a young woman and a secret meal that maybe once he had shared with himself and his inner being of elf. And still he ran, looking for a safe space, looking for a door, any door, but all were closed, all were barred, and there were nowhere to go. He ran to a clearing where there were no more trees that a shadow could follow, no more weeds that treasure could be hidden within, no more closed doors, only a creature in the clearing and a sword. And the creature looked up at him, and he looked back with his wolf's eyes. And the creature bucked at the ground and pointed to the sword. And somewhere out of those deep brown eyes, in the creature, the horse's head, a message came: beware the wolf. Ah, but there is only one escape from that nightmare, which is through the sword. And therein, the elf took up the blade and met a new friend on the path back to the enchanted wood. This is very akin to improv, but without the need to be funny, where you just take everything and go yes and I think there's something really beautiful about these cards that have a resonance for something that is deeply childlike. And you know, fairy tales are often quite dark in nature. Disney has cleaned them up a lot, and I'm liking that play here with whimsy and then that dark edge. And so just allowing yourself to be open to what that throws up and your subconscious and going, well, that's what I've got, let's go with it, kind of thing. Yeah. I'm most well known for Incognita Enterprises and our work on Shakespeare Republic, but I also do a whole bunch of theatre and stuff through Melbourne. You can find me on socials under the title Things from ISO.
Hello there. I'm going to do a little bit of an impromptu story with these cards. I had a bit of a quick look at them before, and they look pretty cool. I'm going to try and tell a bit of a fantasy story, but we'll see what comes out. I think I'm going to start with 3, and it'll give me a bit of a vibe of the elements that I'm playing with, and let's kind of see what we can come up with. A tale of maybe heroes and horror and adventure. Ooh, okay, all right. I saw this when I was sneaking through the cards earlier just to get a sense of the art. We have a bit of a werewolf there. That's a good start. That's always good for this. All right, we've got a bit of a shadow on the trees in the woods. Okay. All right, I'm starting to get a bit of a sense. And we have, it looks like maybe a bit of a crone. There's an old woman in the distance there, someone amongst the trees. All right, I think I've got a bit of an idea here, so bear with me, we'll see. Maybe we'll draw a few more and see if we need some more elements as we go. But our scene will open. We see at first the forest floor. It's rained recently. There is a scent of petrichor in the air. It's stirred up the ground and the dust as we see one boot and then a second and a third crunch down in these wet leaves on the ground. And as we pull back, we see our heroes making their way through this forest. We see one in shiny armor. Looks like a bit of a noble-looking knight, maybe a paladin of some kind. Long golden hair flowing behind him, a big, broad, confident smile as he doesn't yet clutch for the sword by his side. But beside him we see a slightly more nervous man, a little bit more rotund, with a bald pate on his head and a long robe. Looks a little bit more studious, maybe a pious holy man or a cleric of some kind. And a couple of paces behind, kind of lingering back, hands kind of tucked by his sides and looking a little bit more nervous, we see a little bit more of a squirrely gentleman who maybe looks a little less confident to be here. And we see our hero at the front with his long golden hair looks back over his shoulder at the man kind of nervously looking off into the trees. And he says, "I swear I just saw something over there. There was someone in the tree." And as they look over in that direction, the man at the front with his confident smile looks back and says, "Well, Mert, we simply must do this. There's an innocent in danger. There's lives at stake. We simply must rescue the princess. So many before us have failed. This must be done. This is truly fate. This is what we must accomplish." And our squirrely gentleman at the back looks kind of nervously up to our hero at the front and says, "It's easy for you to say, Flavio. You're always confident." And our holy man starts to move the beads around his neck slowly as he walks, his confidence draining a little as the light drains as they head further and further into the woods. The dense tree cover overhead starting to cut and choke out the sun more and more with each step. Every shadow on the trees in the distance looks like something coming to get them. And finally, it starts to get a little too dark to see, and our confident gentleman at the front lights up a torch and looks back. He turns to his friend and says, "Baldric, the holy man, what do you make of this? It's still day, is it not? Why is it so dark here? Mert, what do you?" And as he looks over his other shoulder, Mert is gone. He's nowhere to be seen. No sense of him. They look back, and only darkness behind them. It's almost as if it's closing in on them. And let's draw another card and see what we get. Okay, we have some steps, some stones amongst the grass that lead up to a kind of little archway, and I think as he calls out, Mert, are you there? Takes a step further into the woods. A smallest of light appears in the distance, and moving towards it, steps start to appear on the forest floor above them. And as they step and raise up towards this archway, our holy man lagging behind just a little, as each step is a little taller than the last, and our hero looks back, and the quip dies on his tongue as he finds himself alone. Only him left amongst these heroes that bravely went into the woods. Let's do one more, and let's see what we've got. Okay, we've got a little bit of a broken mirror and a man looking into it there. I think as we get to the archway and we realize that dark arch that in front, our hero Flavio steps up to, and as the light shines down upon it, bursting through a little crack overhead, he sees himself in this reflection, his confident smile gone. Now a look of abject terror as a shadow appears behind him. And as we cut back, we simply hear a scream echo through the woods. And then footsteps once more on the forest floor. First, the pad of woven feet, and then the bare feet of a woman wearing a long dress stained in blood. And as she sighs and shakes her head and picks a bit of gristle from her teeth, she simply smiles ruefully and says, I simply wish my father would stop sending them to me. But that one did taste good. Well, until next time. And I think that is where we'll end our tale for today. Honestly, I was kind of hoping I got some of them when I kind of flicked through it before. You know, I was already kind of, it's hard not to immediately start getting some ideas when you get some really cool artwork like this. I'd seen in the original email you sent me the wolf card, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I hope that comes up. So that was kind of serendipitous that kind of came up. I think immediately a story kind of sprung to mind from some of these. I've used kind of some prompts before for like making little kind of role-playing encounters and stuff. So I think that's kind of what you want to try and do a lot, is just get like the you know, the gist of an idea immediately, even if it's not like super exactly kind of what it is. Like I went a little bit off kind of, you know, what some of the imagery was here. I kind of ignored the old woman and this guy looks like some kind of goblin. But you know, you pick up some elements and just kind of see where that leads you. And that was a lot of fun. I quite like that. Probably the easiest way to find me if you're already watching this and maybe you're in that kind of sphere is I'm the content producer on 5 Foot Step, which is a show that we also do through RMI TV, which is a D&D actual play show, and as part of the Melbourne D&D Adventurers League. So we're probably, by the time you see this, it's probably already started for season 3, but we have a bunch up on our YouTube page. If you search for 5 Foot Step or you search for Melbourne D&D Adventurers League, you'll probably find us. And you know, if you like that kind of story, or you know, a bit of a kind of, you know, fantasy D&D kind of story, maybe you'll like some of the games that we play together.
Okay, so you've probably had some really good like fantasy style stories. Mine's not necessarily going to be like that. I have mostly been telling stories to a 1-year-old lately, and that has really changed the way I format narratives in my head now. So I'm going to tell the story as though I'm telling it to a 1-year-old, and you're not going to judge me. So let's start. Okay, so we got a wolf man. Once upon a time, Cecil was walking through the woods when suddenly he got a little bit itchy. And he started tearing off his shirt and his pants, just scratching everywhere. It felt so annoying. Like when you have a sock that's just kind of gone under, just really bad. But then it got worse. He started growing ears and more hair and whiskers and big teeth and a snout. Cecil was turning into a wolf, which was really inconvenient because he was just going through the forest so he could get to a bakery to buy some cakes. Now, he wanted the blood of innocence. This was inconvenient on a couple of levels. First of all, he'd been craving that cake all day. And secondly, the blood of innocence is frowned upon as a snack. We try not to go for that. We keep our blood to ourselves and let others keep their blood to themselves. But then he thought, maybe being a wolf wouldn't be so bad. Maybe I can go exploring and do things that I can't do as a man. Maybe there are things that are more than cake. So he kept walking through the woods and he found a really cool statue. It's like one of those ones that's like carved out of marble, but it looks like fabric. And he had a moment of thinking, aren't people great? Isn't it cool all the things that we can do if we set our mind to creativity? But then in the distance, he saw a woman made of beads. And he took another moment to be grateful that he had just turned into a wolf, because being a large mass of bees sounded like it'd be even harder to eat cake. So he kept walking, feeling a bit confused why the flowers started to get a little bit brambly. Things looked a little bit nightmare-y, but he thought it was going to be okay. Then he got to see a unicorn. Cecil thought, yeah, I guess being a wolf is okay, but I could have been a unicorn. Like, can you see that flowing mane? That horn that would be good Like, imagine how well you could scratch the inside of your elbow if you had a horn. Wouldn't that be satisfying? Plus, think of how easily you could transport donuts. You would have options as a unicorn. But he decided to be grateful that at least he was a wolf and not a mass of bees. He continued going through the forest, and eventually he came upon the bakery, which was now somehow also in the forest. He figured that now that he was a wolf, the rules of reality didn't necessarily apply as much as they once did. So he came up to the door. It was a beautifully carved door. One of those ones that made you think that fairy tales could be real, or that craftsmanship was not too expensive for the average person anymore. Just that kind of real fantasy life. Solid, dependable, a good knocking door. He knocked because it seemed like the right thing to do. There was no open sign. Who knows the rules once you've been turned into a wolf or a unicorn or a mass of bees? The baker walked to the door with a lantern. Cecil had slightly forgotten that he was a wolf man. Like, not fully, obviously. There was quite a few different changes, and his hand looked like paw. But he hadn't realized how he would look if he came across a person. The screaming was a bit bothersome. But through his kind of barks, obviously Cecil can't talk anymore. He doesn't have a normal mouth. He was going, Eventually, the baker understood that he wanted the apple cake. The beautiful, beautiful apple cake. The blood of the innocents could wait till later. He had tea and apple cake to look forward to. And so he left to walk through the forest to get back home. And in the distance, he saw a babushka, an old Russian grandma. Ordinarily, this would be thrilling, but there's something about seeing someone unfamiliar in the distance in a forest who is a normal human being with a cane that is moving like a snake when all of your friends have been turned into animals. It's just a little bit suspicious. Not necessarily bad. People can do what they want, but just a bit suspicious. So he ran after her and caught up, and she said, "Yes, Cecil?" And Cecil said, "Oh." And she said, "Well, you wanted to see what life would be like if it was different. How much more different can you get?" And Cecil thought for a moment, yeah, this is pretty different. But wouldn't it be nicer if being different had some kind of lesson? I guess the real lesson is, not all stories have morals. The end. Oh, I love them. These cards are beautiful, and they give you a lot to work with. I can see that they're trying to bring you towards some kind of fantastical, dark story. Except for the unicorn. The unicorn's just really happy. The rest of this just seems like everyone's having a bad time. So it's kind of hard to try and make it into a story that a 1-year-old would find appropriate, but I think I managed it. If you want to read my work, you can subscribe to my Substack, press any button, or you can follow me on Blue Sky at alisdkc.blueskysocial, or I write for Gadget Guy, news.com.au, and a bunch of other places.